In the last two videos in this series, I have talked about how to record a macro and what is absolute and relative recording. The macro recorder is a very good tool, but there is a flip side to it. Macro recorder produces extraneous code. Macro recorder can't record variables. Macro recorder cannot record all the actions performed. Macro recorder cannot record custom functions. Recorded code is of low quality. Macro recorder produces a lot of code for small things. The code it produces is of a very low quality, which you have to edit afterwards. Macro recorder is not available in all Office products. For example, in Outlook, it's not available. And macro recorder cannot record error handling code. So let us see how it produces a lot of code. I will go to Developer tab and open the Visual Basic Editor. And I will drag it to the side so that I can see both the windows side by side. I will start recording a macro and I will give it any name. I will go to the Visual Basic Editor and press Ctrl R to open the Project Explorer window, and I will double click the module. This is the macro which is getting recorded. Now I will select the Excel window and press Ctrl P. I will go to the Page Setup dialog box and change this orientation property to portrait and press OK. I'll press escape and look at the amount of code that one change in that box has generated. I just wanted to change the orientation, but it has produced these many lines of code, which later I have to delete. The more the lines of code, the slower the macro runs. Now let us look at how macro recorder cannot record variables. I'll go to sheet 2. In a previous video, I had shown you how to record a dynamic macro. So if we run that macro for any of these cells, it could insert the total in the cell. So if I keep my cursor here, it should be able to insert the total here, and let me run it. It has inserted the total, but it has skipped one row from the total. Why? Because the macro that was recorded for 4 rows. And here the number of rows has increased. The same macro doesn't include that row. Now, if I want to tell it to pick up the number of rows from this cell, there is no way for me to tell the macro recorder that the row number is in cell F1 and it has to pick it from there. I have to go into the macro and tweak it. I'll show you the macro. So here is the macro which we recorded in the last video, and it used to take 4 rows. But here I have changed it by hand. I have copied it and changed it by hand, and I have added this line range variable dot value so that it picks up that value from the range and places it inside the formula so that it accounts for that change in the row. So if I run the tweaked macro, which is insert total variable, it will run it. If the row increases, I will change the row number and I will just run the macro again and it will pick that up. But the point here is that I can't tell the macro recorder to pick up variables from other cells in the macro recorder. Now let us look at the third point. The macro recorder cannot record all the actions that are performed. So I'll open the Visual Basic Editor window and I will take it to the side. And then I will go to the Developer tab and record a new macro. I'll name it anything. And the second module is added. I'll go to that module. This is the macro which is being recorded. I will go to the Developer tab again and I'll customize the ribbon. And I will remove the Developer tab node from here and press OK. You can see nothing is being recorded here. I'll go to that ribbon again, customize it, and bring the Developer tab back. The tab has come back, but nothing is being recorded here. So the macro recorder cannot record all the actions that you do in Excel. Macro recorder cannot record functions. You have to write your custom functions by hand. Macro recorder cannot record a function procedure. It always records a sub procedure. After all these shortcomings of the macro recorder, let us look at some benefits that the macro recorder provides. Macro recorder produces working code which you can tweak and make it better. It helps you learning about objects and their properties and methods. There are so many objects and properties and methods that nobody can remember them. When you record a macro, it shows you the objects and properties and methods that are useful for your job at hand. It saves you a lot of time. You can avoid writing code. So these are all the shortcomings and the benefits of the macro recorder. You can produce some code using the macro recorder, but at the end of the day, you have to learn the language if you want to be good at it. I hope you are liking this series on writing macros in Excel. If you are, then please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your time.